Hello, it's Greg Grizzled and Gaijin. We're back. We hope you're having a happy day wherever you're listening to this audio content from. As always, we'd like to thank you for your continued support of Greg Grizzled and Gaijin social media and writing efforts. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This is episode 041 of the Greg Grizzled and Gaijin, definitely not a podcast show. A light and fluffy look at social media, Japan, Japanese food, expat life, and life in general. As always, your retweets of this and all the wonderful, wonderful, wonderful content that we actively tweet and retweet out on Craig Hoffman 11 on Twitter is appreciated. Thank you in advance for your help in getting the good word out about Greg Grizzled and Gaijin. Another good show today, I hope. By request from my great friend and former expat neighbor, Braden, talking about 14 years of living in Japan. As the Japanese school year comes to a close at the end of March as I'm recording this, I will have been in the land of the rising sun for 14 years. And so he thought it would be fun to kind of go down memory lane and talk about some of the good, the bad, and yes, to some degree, the ugly, about what it's really like to live abroad for that length of time. Doesn't mean I'm an expert on Japan. It doesn't mean I know everything. But I hope, whether you're thinking about coming to Japan, whether you've been here 2 or 3 years, or like me, you're in it for the foreseeable future, that you take something from this discussion that helps you live your life, whether that's in Japan or around the world, more happily. So, I guess, as one says, with a story, we should start at the beginning. In 2005, my employment situation in Japan, my life really wasn't very good. Lots of reasons for that. I suppose some of them must have been my fault, but I would like to think that the vast majority of them were not. My company had fallen on hard economic times, and my hours had been cut down next to nothing. So bad I had to move back in with my beloved mother at 29 years old. That certainly was a hit to my ego, to be sure. I sold my beloved Mustang. I did make a little profit. That was almost the money I came to Japan with, basically, and allowed me to pay for the health checks and things that I needed and my passport before I even came here. I was about 2 months away from bankruptcy when I got on the plane, my very first plane ride in March of 2005, and I came to Japan. I didn't know what the job paid. My predecessor said, quote, "It pays enough," end quote, and that was as specific as they chose to be. I didn't even sign my contract until I was in Japan to take on the position, and I had prepaid my plane ticket. I knew I was going to get the money back for that, but I really maxed out the last of my credit card to even afford to make that trip here. I settled into life pretty quickly. I worked at a junior high school as an assistant language teacher. I was also a cultural coordinator through a sister cities relationship, so my duties extended into the community, and that was great. The small community had an active international association, and so anytime I needed help, there were staff and there were community members with high levels of English who were able to help me. That was really key, I think, to helping me settle in early. I came to Japan with no Japanese ability. I used to joke I knew samurai, geisha, and ninja, and that truly was really about it. Quickly, through another volunteer organization in that small town, I got a Japanese teacher, and I took several lessons a week. I was really eager to study Japanese. Of course, I wanted it for my life in Japan, but I also wanted a resume builder. I was hoping to develop more skills so that when I went back to America after a year, I could hopefully get a better job and move into a better situation for my life. I studied really hard. I went out into the community every day, a different restaurant every evening and bar. With my little phrase book, I talked to every Japanese person I could find. I'm sure they found that rather annoying, but I tried to use Japanese whenever I could. Not at school. My English teachers were all high-level speakers of English, which is also very rare, but they were most eager to practice English, and they were very clear that they wanted me to use English only with the students and I did as I was told, and I did a really good job in the classroom, and my evaluations were really high, and people respected me, so I was really proud of that. The first year came, and the group asked me, did you want to stay a second year? I was paying down my debt. I paid off about $7,000 worth of credit cards that first year, so that was a great relief. I remember paying the last payment electronically, and I broke all 3 of those credit cards in half, and I threw them in the trash. And to this day, in 2019, I've never had another credit card. That's a true story. And I said yes, and the job was very much the same the second year. A lot of the foreigners in my area left in the middle of that second year, and they were replaced by new, if you know the JET program, they came in, and a few other programs in the community. Those folks were younger. We didn't get off on the right foot, I think, and we didn't really get along, and that caused trouble in the expat community. I'm sure I'm responsible for a fair amount of that, and I've written and talked about that in other videos and audio content. But they were too, and sometimes it's just a fishbowl. You just get a mix of different cultures, a different age. At that point, I was like 30 years old, 31, and they're coming in still at 22, 23. There's a generational gap and a different view of life and one's responsibility to job and volunteerism in Japan. So it was a lonely time, basically, in the middle of that second year. And the group asked me, did you want to stay a third year? And by that time, I was pretty debt-free. I was actually starting to save some money for myself. And I had considered other countries, graduate school, law school, just going back and getting a job. And I don't know, it seemed like a good situation. So I said, I'll do one more year at the third year. That was the final year, right? And the rules suddenly changed, and I was able to do 5 if I wanted, at least by rights. That didn't mean that the group that sent me here wanted me to do it that long. They liked changing people, getting a new, fresh face, and more people from my local community to experience living and life in Japan. And I was actually replaced in that job. And unfortunately for the person who replaced me, they fell on hard times and had some medical issues, and they dropped out suddenly. And that left the group scrambling for a teacher, and there really wasn't time to find someone. So they asked me, please, Craig, will you stay a 4th year? And I said, okay. Which was really fortunate, because about that time, after years and years and years of being single, I met a very nice Japanese woman here. And if I had not gotten that 4th year, I would not have been able to continue to date her. I had planned on just, shaking hands and calling it a day. But I got that 4th year, and we continued to date and continued our relationship, and we got engaged to be married. Again, I'm still planning on kind of going back, but I didn't know. And the group said, well, we really couldn't find anybody good. Do you want to stay a 5th year? And I remember with my fiance in the living room of my little apartment crying. Because another year, of course, is another year of saving, is another year to kind of, quote, figure things out, end quote, what we were going to do with our lives. And she could continue to work, and we could save money for our future and get really off to a good start as a young married couple, or at least younger. We were 32 and 3, as I recall. But the 5th year went really quick, and the job kind of got old. I liked being an assistant language teacher. It was great. But by year 5, and you're still just the card flipping foreigner in the room, and the English teachers had changed, and some of them didn't really value the foreign English teacher, and by value I mean use or even acknowledge at some point, and that's their choice. They're the teacher. Their butt is on the line when things go well and don't go well, and when the kids pass and don't pass the test, and that's totally their right. But by year 5, definitely ALT was not really something I was interested in doing like a 6th and 7th year. So I got married, and I didn't have a job. I had some scuff around work. That was about all I could muster. It was okay because I had, again, been smart and saved money, and I had been smart to be really careful with what I was spending. But it was a tough year or so. My wife, at that point, was going to her job every day, and I was, in my jammies. It hurt. It was a hit to my ego, to be sure. I made as much money as I could. I even enrolled in a advanced Japanese school for 3 months, hoping that my improved Japanese would give me a little bounce in my job search, even if I decided to move outside of like English teaching. So I was proactive, and I took more Japanese lessons after that course ended with a private tutor 3 or 4 days a week while working as much as I could. Eventually, I did find another teaching job in my area by complete chance. It was the same job I had applied for a year earlier, and I got no response, and they hired kind of on the inside, so I had no chance at that job. I didn't know that at the time. And the second year, I got a quick response and an interview, and I got the job, and I'm still at the company 7 years later. It's an excellent company. I'm very, 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 very fortunate to have stable income in my life. Early married life was good. My wife seemed really happy to be married. And, we decided if we're going to have a family. And I was apprehensive. I had visions that if something bad happened to my wife, what would I do? Would I live here? Would I go home? But I set aside fear, and we went ahead and gave our best effort for a family. And that's gone really well. I don't talk a lot about that on social media for a lot of reasons. But I'm a proud parent, to be sure. But of course, now all of my friends started to leave, and I'm busier and busier. While I said I work for a very, very good company, they expect me to work. And I have a saying, quote, if you're paying, I'm working, end quote. And my company, to their credit, takes me up on that. So I'm a busy guy. And my life went along. That was like year 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 in Japan. Income was coming in. Life was good. I did all of the normal things. I bought a condo. I bought a car for my wife. I continued to build a life. Family got into activities and events that are not free. But I was fortunate to be able to make enough income to provide a nice life for those I care about. But I turned 40. That was about 3 years ago. And I looked in the mirror, and my life felt kind of empty. And I've written and talked about it a lot. Is this all there is? I'm a card flipping gaijin. Very good card flipping gaijin. But at the end of the day, that's what I do, and that's the sum total of my life. And I have this terrible character flaw that I'm really OCD about being the best. I'm not big on second place. I like being first. I like winning. And I despise losing. And that doesn't make me relatively special in that thought, but it consumes me to a degree on the inside. Now, I know you don't win every situation, and losing is part of living. Even failure is part of living. But I had failed so much in America to reach those grand dreams. And I felt, even though my life was really stable in Japan, I talked about a hamster on a wheel in one blog post. I just felt like, where am I going? Me as a person. So I got back into public writing. I said, hey, why don't I write a book? And I wrote a novel for November National Writing Month, and I put some work into it, and I published it, and people loved it or hated it, and that was great. They don't know who you are, so even if they love you, it didn't matter, and even if they hate you, it doesn't matter. And I realized that I had to do more on social media, and I tried to find some writing work with some publishers here in Japan, and they didn't want like the quote truth end quote about Japan. They want, I don't know, advertisement for look how wonderful Japan is, and if you're not here, why aren't you here, and look how great, and nothing ever goes wrong, and it's the end of the rainbow, and I'm not one to lie to people, and so I refuse that kind of work. So I started my own blog, and of course I'm not going to put any money into that because I'm big, as I said, on saving money. Even though it's my dream, it's something I knew I could do. I picked a free blog, and I had to search and find the password for my Twitter account that I had only gotten to connect with like a friend who said, hey, why don't you start Twitter? And so I did. But when I go into doing something, I go full force. And I went full force into writing. I wrote a second book and then a third. And I pushed out, now coming up on 600 blog posts. I built a really big following. It didn't really change my life. There's no magic here. I'm not world famous. And I'm not, raining in big buckets of money. But I feel much more complete as a person, despite, quote, failing, end quote, at my big, big, big life dreams. And I'm not saying that you got to become a writer, a blogger, or a social media influencer to accomplish those things in your life. But for me, that was a path that I've found some serenity. And so that's good. But of course, time continues to pass. And I'm getting older. And the car that is the human body begins to fail and break down in a myriad of ways. I don't think I'm dying anytime soon, but I feel it as I go about my life that I'm creeping slowly much more towards old age than I am clinging to my younger days. And it's obvious when I look in the mirror and I see my graying hair. And it's really obvious when I see the parents and the other foreigners in my area getting younger and younger and younger. And that's the way it goes, right? Somebody asked me, do you regret coming to Japan? Yes, I do. And people are often surprised by that. I regret what I probably missed in the last 14 years in America. I missed a lot of family events, missed a lot of birthday parties, a lot of Christmases and holidays. I missed a lot of death. My grandmother passed a couple of years ago. I had to talk to her via video phone from a hospital bed. She had coded, and they had brought her back to life. And we exchanged a few greetings and I love yous. And the next message I got from my beloved mother, my beloved grandmother was dead. And I didn't go to the funeral. There's a lot of that. My mother misses me. I call. I call every week. I have every week. But she's not so happy that I continue to live in Japan. She knows that I have a happy life. And she's well. So there's that. But there's a space between us, right? And we know that one of us one day will not be on the other end of the phone. And one of us will not be there. And we will not be together when that moment happens for either her or I. And I have friends who have died, even at such a young age. And I have wonderful, wonderful friends that I have not seen in 14 years, and I will probably never see again. Living in Japan, America is not a hop, skip, and a jump, and it's not free. I've been home 3 times in 14 years. I went on a free homestay. I took a group of junior high school kids back to my hometown. That was 4 days. I went back part of my honeymoon to New York and then my hometown for about 4 days. And I took my family back about 3 years ago to my hometown for about 4 days. So I've seen most of my family about 12 days in the last 14 years. And they don't know me as well. I don't know them. And in some ways, it feels like we're strangers. Of course, social media, Facebook, I'm active there. That helps a lot. But yeah, there are nieces and nephews and cousins babies who I only know in picture form and through funny little Facebook posts. And so, yeah, there's regret there that I missed that. But there's also a lot of joy in knowing that I maximized my life. If you'd have told me in my small little town as a boy growing up that I would live a life abroad, being extremely happy and enjoying waking up in the morning, I would have been really, really shocked. And if you'd have told me that I had it within me to be successful living alone in a foreign country, and that I would be able to influence young lives at the very start of their journeys, and if you told me that I could be a leader in a foreign community that's respected, and that I could write and I could blog and I could engage people and people engage me back, and I could create a following of positive people who would hopefully spread that joy and positivity, and who hopefully have a positive view of what I'm trying to accomplish, I'd have been pretty ecstatic for 14 years. It doesn't mean that 14 years has been perfect here. I'm sure that I've failed people and failed moments that other people would have been successful in. And I'm sure that after 14 years, there are people who will probably listen to this and wonder, well, if he's so great, why is he still just a dumb old English teacher? And that's their right, and maybe they are right. But I think deep down, I still believe I'm destined to be more and do more in Japan. And I wish I could tell you I had a clear path and clear goal in mind of what I see, quote, success for Craig, end quote, in life is. But that would be a lie. But I can tell you that 14 years, I've had a place to sleep, I've had something to eat, and I've had adventure, good and bad, each and every day. And I've become an extremely, extremely, extremely positive person who believes anything is possible, who believes in hard work, and who believes in himself. And I'm not sure that last part about believing in myself 100% would have happened had I stayed in America and, quote, played it safe, end quote. That's not to say that you can't find success, happiness, and belief in yourself in your home country. But again, for me, there was something about breaking out of that mold, making that proverbial leap that changed not only the outside parts of my life, money and job and certainly relationship, but changed on the inside, that limitations are what we think we have, but possibilities are what we achieve and hopefully grasp onto in life. So I hope if you're out there and you're listening to this and you wonder, can my life change? Can I find success? Can I find a way to turn my life around? Can I continue my life? Can I get up tomorrow in a job that I don't love? Can I function in an alien environment when my skills are so limited? I can tell you it's possible. With enough hard work, effort, gumption, and patience, almost anything is possible. So here's to 14 years of fun and adventure in Japan, and hopefully at least 14 more in the future. That's it, and have a great, great day.